shared your screen.
That's what I'm.
Yeah, we can see that.
Yes. So yeah, you can see. Thanks. Yeah. So starting with my introduction. So my name is Bharat Agarwal. I'm a software engineer by passion and profession. And I'm so sorry for being such a late. Actually, I was in call, so it took a longer time. Thanks for waiting. Yeah. So we can move on. And I am team member at GD Jalandhar. So today we'll be having this overview of JavaScript. What is JavaScript and how can we use it and other stuff. And of course, we'll be having a session on a hands-on session as well. So moving ahead. So today we'll be learning about an introduction to JavaScript, like what is JavaScript is, what we can do with it, like how to use it and where to use it, basics of JavaScript, for loop and declaring variables. I hope you can. I'm so sorry. I hope you can see me and listen me properly. Yeah. So we'll be having a hands-on session on JavaScript. We'll try some of the code snippet. We can try functions, creating function, other stuff, and we'll see what next week you can do with JavaScript. So moving ahead with what is JavaScript. So firstly, I would like to ask you guys, what is JavaScript? If anybody can like pick up. Of course, I've shown here, but apart from this one, a basic introduction about what you know guys about JavaScript is. Anyone?
JavaScript helps in the working of a web page. For example, like HTML and CSS, they help in structuring a web page, while JavaScript is like the mechanism of a web page. We can say that in a way, website like a design, like a scripting language.
Cool, that's fair enough. Yeah, thanks Aditya, and thanks everyone. Yeah, it was really great to have you interacted with. So moving ahead, let me introduce what is JavaScript is. That Aditya mentioned it very clearly, very properly. So, but in some technical terms, we'll say JavaScript is like interpreted language. It's high-level programming language, and it's basically a multi-paradigm programming language, which means you can use object-oriented as well as you can use functional programming in this. You don't need to be rely on only one. You can. It's your preference, and it is like a lightweight programming language apart from others. Since it runs on a browser, so it should be that much optimized to be run on web pages and web browsers. Okay, so today JavaScript is not only for the web, but it also runs on servers. And actually, not only on the server itself, it can run on any device which has this JavaScript engine with them. So JavaScript is like object-oriented in with first-class functions. So anybody has any idea what is first-class functions? Anyone, like, if they have any sort of idea what is first-class functions? And cool, yeah. So first-class functions is like a language which supports passing functions as argument. You see, in the functions we pass arguments. So JavaScript supports passing as a argument, functions as a argument, and it can also return a function as argument, so as return. So this is what is first class programming language means. So JavaScript is first class function programming language. It is object oriented. It has multiple paradigms. You can use object oriented. You can use functional as well. It is the language of browsers. So browsers only understand JavaScript as of now. Moving ahead with the slides. So what we can do with JavaScript. So as Aditya mentioned, it runs on browsers. So of course, it is a programming language of browsers. Browsers only understand JavaScript. It is used to provide interactivity to the web pages. It helps to structure the web pages properly. And of course, you can create mobile applications, web applications, even desktop applications with JavaScript. So you know, how many of you use VS Code over here? You can just put up in chat. Yeah, okay. So VS Code is built with JavaScript. It is built with Electron.js, which was written in JavaScript. So that's what JavaScript is. JavaScript is everywhere as of now. So JavaScript is used in networking, command line tools, in games. You see browser-based games. Those all were written in JavaScript. So JavaScript is pretty cool. It can be used anywhere from front to back and do pretty much hands off thing. Moving ahead, now we'll see JavaScript where in web. How can like in web where we can use it? So building this fast servers, fast responding servers, and client-side applications, full stack. Even you can build full stack application from front to back with JavaScript only. Like you can use any framework in the front end as a JavaScript framework. You can use Node.js and other Node.js frameworks in backend to build with servers. So it is like it helps us to build reactive and performant client-side applications, which we can do with reactivity comes with the many frameworks like React, Vue, Angular, and there are many more frameworks which provides this reactivity. So reactivity means if you update anything, it should be reflected in your UI instead of keep refreshing the page or keep refreshing the UI. So it automatically refresh it and do other stuffs, reactive stuffs with their own. And it also helps us to build a scalable backend applications. So there are many number of companies which are using JavaScript as their primary language for backend technologies. So you can use Node.js, you can use Dino.js, and there are lots of other to build with JavaScript. So now you might be wondering, how can we use JavaScript in our code, or how can we get hands-on to JavaScript? So there are two methodologies. The one would be the same page as the HTML has, and one would be in the external scripting linking with that page. So today we'll be talking about some of the like what we can do with the JavaScript, like basic programming using JavaScript, like how the loop works, what are the arrays, what are the objects in the JavaScript, and we'll doing with the browser console only itself. So it comes with so we can use in a script tag. Basically, script tag means you put up script tags in your head tag or in the body itself, but we generally prefer at the end of the body to be having the script tag and return your JavaScript code inside that JavaScript code into that script tag. And external scripting is something like it will provide the link of or you can say path of the file in the script itself, and browser will automatically pick up those files and start executing your JavaScript code. So now we'll see what is JavaScript variables and what all we can do with JavaScript. So let me stop sharing my screen. Let me share my entire screen. I'm not allowed to share. Yeah, so I'm trying to share my full screen, but I don't know, somehow I'm. Guys, can you see my console? Oh, it's not visible now.
Yes, Bharat, it's visible.
Console, or you can see only incognito screen.
No, console is not visible.
I'm trying to share that.
I think for console you have to share entire screen.
Yeah, but it's not allowing. Yeah, I think now you can see it. Is it?
Your screen is not shared.
Yeah, can you see it?
Yes,
Yes.
now it's visible. Now it's visible.
Cool.
Please zoom it.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, perfect.
So yeah, so today we'll be doing everything with the console only. So we'll not be using any scripting tag. Tomorrow probably we'll having another session on JavaScript itself. So we'll be doing creating a whole application from scratch. So firstly, let's introduce to the variables. So anyone know what are variables? what are they use of? So how many of you know basic of programming and what are the things we can do with the programming? Is anyone? You can unmute yourself and you can speak as well. Cool. We'll proceed. So basically, variables are, yeah, it's correct, Rajiv. Variables are the containers to store data. Yes. So today we'll be seeing two type of variables. The one would be const, and the other would be let variable in JavaScript. So first, let's see let. So basically, let variable is a block scoped variable. So it has in whatever scope, whatever block the let is defined, it can be used only there. It can't be used anywhere else. So if I define let a equals to 1, so you'll see now a is of type integer. So firstly, before moving to this thing, I would like to mention JavaScript is a dynamic type programming language. So you don't need to pass any type of data type in while defining the variables. It automatically picks up whatever you pass over there. But be sure to use it in a safe environment. So you see, if I pass 1, it will accept. Or so if I pass a equals to string as well, it also picked up. So it is a dynamically typed language, so you don't have to pass type of data type in the variable defining. So this is how we define a variable with let. So what let does, let allows us to uh, reassign the variables. You can reassign things in that variable which is defined with let, and another one is const. So const itself means like a constant variable which can be only initialized once and which cannot be reassigned again and again. So if I try to create const sum equals to 10, so if you see it will be it accepted, but if I try to assign it again, you see I'll get an error. Assignment to const variable is not allowed basically. So basically that we have lot of types of variable, like we have let, we have var, we have const. So will be using these two for our session. And var is like a global scope variable, but inside only a functional scope basically. So that's what var is. So we'll be defining these two only as for now, like let and the const. So const is only declared once, and it cannot be reassigned again and again. Yeah. So moving ahead, we'll be talking about arrays. So anybody know what array are? What are arrays? Correct. Yes, Nandini, linear data structure. So let's not move to a data structure as for now. So we'll keep it, arrays are like a bunch of variable things with together itself. Rajiv, you are right, but I'll show you something in the JavaScript side. You'll be seeing something cool. Yeah, so let's firstly define an array. So we define array with this curly braces. So array start with index 0, and originally it should be storing one type of variable, one type of data type only itself. But in JavaScript, it can store multiple data types. Like you can assign strings, you can assign numbers, numbers, you can assign objects to it, you can assign anything to it. So in JavaScript, arrays are nothing but an object. So object can have any type of data type, you can say. So firstly, let me show you why we want an array. So you see, like if I want to have 50 number of items, then 50 number of variables, then how will I have those? I will keep defining a1 equals to something, let a2 equals to something. So it's like a very tedious task to define again and again, again and again. So in this case, we have variables where we can store, we have arrays where we can store variables, multiple variables with the one only things. So if I write on this, so we define something like this. So this is array initialization. You see, we have initialized a blank array as of now. So there is nothing in array. If I print length of array, it will 0. So we can also initialize the array as we are defining it. It could be like let p equals to something like 1, 2, 3, 4. Now our array length would be 4. So this is the syntax to initialize array as well as assigning the items into it. We can also put the items in array, something like it has 4 equals to 2. So now it will automatically insert it into array. Like now length of the p would be 5. See, length would be 5. So you know how to access the array elements. It would be like variable name, then having a curly braces and defining whatever the index you want. 0 array start with 0, index 0. So we have 0 at 1 at index 0, we have 1, and at index 1 we have 2, at index 3 we have 3, at index 3 we have element 4. So that's how array works in JavaScript. There is one more methodology to defining array. It's like let arr equals to. So we can define in this way as well. So both has similar functionality. Like it's up to the programmer's preference what they want to prefer. So both has the runtime initialization, all other things. So you need not to care about any declaration. You can do anyone you want to do. So that's how. So we'll now perform some operations array like p dot add. So sorry, p dot fill. So this is allow us to fill every element in array. So like if we want that in an array, we want this and this element should be 2. So we'll define 2 comma 5 0 comma 4. So it is like we want to put 2 at from index 0 to index 4. Last will not included in this. So now you'll see all elements would be of 2, 2, 2, and 2. So there are lots of operations in array, like we can have length, we can calculate array length, we can have, we can just find elements in array, we can have find, I want to find 2. So we have lots of inbuilt methods in array. So we'll see as we move ahead with the array. So next I would like to highlight on the loops. So you know what are the use case of loops? Okay. Yeah. So loops allow us to repeat a process again and again. So and how will we iterate through an array? So it is really a tedious task to like write every time like array bracket 1, array bracket 2, array bracket 3. We can use loops to iterate through the array. So there are lots of loops available in JavaScript. The one would be for loop, do while loop. There is a for each loop as well. So basically for each works with arrays. So you just need to write a, like we'll define, we have this array, let arr equals to something like 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So how will we loop through it? We have different methodology. Like one, we could be use it for let I equals 0, I less than how many elements we have? 5, I plus plus. Okay. So before moving to printing the loop, array elements, how would you print in a JavaScript? So like you have printf, cout in different programming languages. So we have over here we have console log. So basically this allow us to print anything in on the console which we have, this console. So we can use array of I. You see your array would be printed. So console log is allow us to print something on console. That's what the console log is. Like as is similar as we have printf and cout or system.out.println. So they all do the same task as the console log do. Yeah. So moving ahead, we have while loop. So I hope, let me show you that as well. We know in while loop, we need to provide a condition over here, like what would be the exit condition for the loop. So we'll mention something like this. Okay, so anybody can tell me what's wrong over here? Anyone from audience? Anyone? Guys, do it fast.
Anyone from? Sorry.
And like you guys can mention anything. What's wrong over here? Hello, can you hear me?
Sorry, I think his laptop got switched off. He's joining again.
Okay, I'm back again. So anyone can explain what happened just now? Hello?
After you left, Bharat, few people answered missing incrementation. You have not iterated.
That, I want to ask, like, what happened actually में? वहाँ हुआ क्या? Yes, infinite loop. So it led my Chrome browser to be crashed. So you see, that's what loops can do. So loops are basically repeating, it helps us to repeat the task again and again and again and again. So that's what did. So I forgot to increment the iterator and it led to disaster. So yeah, so we had, I hope you can see my screen. So, yes, so
Yes, Bharat, it's visible.
it is not showing anything on console. is my PC is acting really weird. Yep. So where we have done something really wrong, but let me show you again, like how that works. So basically, I forgot to increment the t. Yes. So as you can see, we I forgot to increment the t. So that's what led to us disaster in infinite loop. So so these are two type of loops, but we have one another loop, that is for each loop. So for each loop basically comes handy over there, where we don't need to take care of those the disaster which just happened with us. Like if I use that p variable and use for each, and over here I need to pass a argument, like what is the element in the p. So let's suppose I type element, and basically over here it expect a function call to be precise, like uh, it accept a function over here. As I defined, the function will have parameter element, and it will be printing all the elements which we have in an our array.
What does for each do again? Can you?
Yeah, for each will iterate through every element in your array. So it does the same as your both of the array was doing, but in a better way. Like we don't miss out anything, and we use other functionalities of arrays as well. So you see, the mistake which I made, I forgot to mention I forgot to increment my iterator. So that's what we are like.
So basically, in a way, it is just doing the job of a for loop. We can say that, yeah.
Yeah, in the background it does execute the for loop as well as it only,
Okay.
but in a better way. Like we do not miss out anything, or we do not end up screwing things. Yeah, so that's the for each loop. So basically for each loop is allow us to iterate through every element in array, but in a better way, in the form of functions and callbacks. So this is basically, this is a callback which I'll show you, which I'll like probably show you tomorrow what is callback is and what is the use of callbacks. So this is a callback which will tell the for each loop that whenever we are iterating through element, we need to run this function. Getting it? What I'm trying to say. Cool. So for each loop is a enhanced version of for loop. You can see that, something like that. Cool. I think we have. I think you. I hope you learned something about loops and arrays. So can we move forward, or should I once again iterate through this? What are the loops and array? Cool. Okay. So next we have functions. So uh, can anybody explain what are the functions are? What the functions is? Yes, you can unmute yourself and you can speak. Yes. Yes, Neeraj. So it is like a block of, well, everyone has mentioned correctly. It's like block of code which can be used. We can reuse it again and again. So that's what functions are. So in JavaScript, we have lots of method to define functions and um, give them a proper things. We'll be focusing on two things. The one would be arrow functions, and one would be the normal functions, which we generally make. The difference between both of them is like uh, your arrow functions are the lambda functions which are available in JavaScript, but sorry, in Python, but with more number of lines of code you can mention in arrow functions. And the difference between arrow function and normal function is the context. Basically, the arrow functions are does not aware about the context, which in this context they are executing. So they pick always the global context which they are being called. And the normal functions have their own context. This, it means you can use this in normal functions, but you cannot use this in the arrow functions. This will always refer to the global scope of the function. So let's try to define a function. So let's suppose I am defining function named full name, or to print name. So this is the syntax to declare a function. So you see, firstly we have to write a function as a keyword, then the function name, and then the parentheses which accept a parameters which we want to pass on, or which we want to be used in this function, and then a curly braces. So I'll show you what we can do. We can do just console log Bharat. So this function will always print my name. So if I call the function, you see Bharat will print it. So the function calling will be done on like this, as we do in the programming language. It is always same in the JavaScript as well. So how we define function as if firstly we'll define function keyword, then we'll define a name of the function, then the parentheses, then the curly braces. So this is like a static function which does not return anything, which do not do anything. So we'll try to see how we can return from it. And one more thing to mention, since I already mentioned, JavaScript is dynamically typed language, so we do not need to pass on what the type of variable it is. So same with the functions as well. We don't need to mention any data type, that what it should be returning and what it should accept or anything like that. You can always ignore that, and you can just move ahead with the that's the beauty of JavaScript. You don't need to mention anything again and again. So we'll see how to pass variables. So let's suppose I want to print name with arguments. So I'll pass name as a, so you see, you don't have to pass anything over here. You don't need to mention string or char array. You don't mean to mention everything. Even you don't mean to mention any let or something like that. You just pass the variable name over here, and we automatically do JavaScript will automatically do everything with their own. So if I show you, you see Bharat is printed over here. So this is how we pass arguments in a function. So again mentioning that you don't need to pass any type of data type over there. You don't need to declare this variable. You just need to name something over there that which will be coming from while calling the function. So that's how we declare a normal function. So let's talk about declaring a arrow function. So we'll declare arrow function. So before declaring arrow function, we will use methodology to declare a variable first. So as I mentioned, we declare a variable, let some arrow function, and it will be having equals to, and then it will have a parentheses. Basically this is the this is where we'll pass our arguments, and then we have this function, arrow function. So basically this is the key important thing which generally today most of the JavaScript developers are using, they mostly prefer this arrow functions. It looks like pretty good, to be precise, and we don't need to mention anything. It will do the same work as your normal function was doing. See, this is the syntax how we declare arrow functions. So as I already mentioned, arrow functions are not aware about the context, or they're not aware about this. They'll always pick the context where they have been called. So if I can just call these arrow functions as normal functions which we generally call. So this is how we this is how we declare arrow functions. So if I show you another arrow functions with the parameters. So don't confuse with parameters and arguments. These two are the almost same things. We just name it as. You see, this is doing the same. This is same as the our normal function is doing, but the syntax is different, and their internal implementation and internal functionality is different. But we'll not go deeper into internal functionality as of now. We'll only see the declaration. This is how we declare the arrow functions, and this is how we declare normal functions. And I mentioned the arrow functions because if you go towards any open source contributions or anything, you'll see most people over there are using arrow functions as they can bind any type of uh, context with the arrow functions. So these are most widely used in arrow functions, but it's up to the programmer's choice which they want to go with. So this is how we do it. So now we'll see how can we return things from the arrow from the functions. So I'll declare I'm creating a variable, sorry, a function called return. So in this, I'll be expecting a parameter called name, sorry, the first name, and last name, and I'll be concatenating both of them, and we'll be returning them. So string concatenation is pretty easy in JavaScript. You can concatenate the string as you are concatenating. So you are adding two variables. You see, that's how we concatenate two strings. So basically, it will what it will return if I pass like I passed first comma last. You see, I get first last as the my result. So this is how we return, and you can return any type of variable from here. You can just not just we can only return string, but it will return the type of variable which you want. It will act like it will show you the result as the variable which you are returning from the function. So this is how we return, and same goes with the arrow functions as well. So arrow function has the same functionality to return the variables. I think, guys, are you getting with me? Are you on with me? If you have any question regarding to anything, just put up in the chat section. We'll be happy to answer those things as well. Or you can unmute yourself and ask the question as well. So, got till here? Thanks, everyone. So, moving ahead, we'll be looking, as I earlier mentioned, like arrays not only for in JavaScript, arrays not only to have a similar type of data type, but it can have multiple type of data type. If I give an example of that, let arr equals to, if I put one, I can put like a string over here. I can put any emoji in this. See, double quotes. So this will accept it, and it can also print it. Like if I go to the for each loop, see, it is printing every data type which is available in the array. So sure, Charan, sure, I'll show you that as well. So let's first complete this one, and then we can move on to the function as argument and another function as well. Yeah. So you see, this is not the only thing. We can only pass one type of data type in an array. We can pass any type of data type in this array. So JavaScript supports, as I mentioned, JavaScript is dynamically typed language. So you don't need to take care about the data types. You can pass any type of data type anywhere. So did you guys get it? What I'm trying to make it clear? Cool. Yeah. So let's see the Charan's question. Let's move to see how can we pass a function as an argument in another function. So let's suppose if I have function base function, I name just randomly something, and if I passing over here as another function, and if I console log this another function, let me declare another function like some random. Do nothing, just console logging my name. So when I call this function, if I call this base function, I pass some random in this, you'll see it will print a function. And if I instead of console logging this, if I just call this another function, I have declared this one. I already declared the another function, some random function basically. And if I call this one, we'll see you start printing Bharat. So this means in the base function, I've passed in another function as this. And you see, in the function has the name some random, but I'm calling another function. So you can see I'm calling it from the parameters instead of calling it in the scope, from the global scope. Did you get it, Charan? Yes. So that's how we pass the function, and we can also return the functions from there. Same like I have these two functions. The one is base functions, and same. Let's suppose I return this one. Now I'll pass something like this: base function and some random function which I already declared, or better, I'll declare again. In base function, I'll pass this random function. See, Bharat is printed just because it is calling over here. So instead of calling, we can just we can do this one as well. You'll see now to see you see it returned us some random function, and now to execute this function, we can just again use this parentheses, so it will be executed. So what we are doing, but first we are calling this base function with passing some random function as a parameter, then it will returning the same function as, and we are just calling that function. Did you guys get this one? How that hierarchy is working, or should I explain it again? Cool. So that's how we pass functions as an argument in another function, and this is why this first class function programming language. So I think we are done with the time, and I'm so sorry for late today. I think we are done with today's thing. Let me switch to presentation. Yeah. So yeah, so that's it in our today's session. So if you have any questions regarding to the session, you can just put up in chat section. I'm open to the questions. You can ask it, or you can just post in our Discord server channel as well. So if anything, just come up with the questions. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, yeah, Charan, these codes can be run in server side as well as at the client side. So as of now, I'm using Google Chrome's console to run these code. So Google Chrome has this V8 JavaScript engine with them. So they run JavaScript in their own environment. So I'm using over there as well. So tomorrow we'll see by creating some application, we'll see how we can script it with another HTML pages and all of those things. Did that answer the question? Okay, thank you. Cool. Anyone have any other question? Guys, one more thing to mention, if you have any doubt regarding to the sessions or regarding anything, just post in our Discord server channel. We'll be happy to answer your queries, and of course the mentors are always available for over there for you. Sure, I'll
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Bharat. See you all tomorrow, same time. I mean, like 7 p.m. Till then, bye. Take care.
Thanks everyone. Bye bye.